Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Game Plan Podcast, sponsored by College Baseball Advisors. I'm your host, Wayne Mazzoni. My background is 30 years as a college baseball coach and current college baseball recruiting advisor. For more information about what I do in my business, please go to the website collegebaseballadvisor.com. On today's episode, we had Lance Ratchford, the head baseball coach at Marist University. Lance and I have known each other for quite a while, and he's just got a story that's like a lot of people. Played Division II baseball for 3 years in college, transferred then to a Division III school, had a really good college career. After college, thought he wanted to work in baseball in some capacity. Actually started down the road of kind of baseball operations, front office type work, and somewhat of on a whim of through his network of people, got asked to coach at 𝐼 Oneonta. He's from that area, and found out right away that he loved college coaching. He spent 4 years at 𝐼 Oneonta, then took a job coaching as the volunteer at Marist College under 𝐼𝐵, was there for 3 seasons before he then got the head baseball coaching job at SUNY Cobleskill, a program where he basically turned around. And then in 2022, when 𝐼𝐵 took the job at Army, he was able to get the job at Marist and had the opportunity potentially to go to Army with 𝐼𝐵, but took the opportunity at Marist, where he's been with since. He's an awesome guy, full of energy. You'll learn a lot from this podcast, whether you're an up-and-coming coach or a baseball player. We talk about recruiting. We talk about the characteristics that make baseball players and programs good. We also talked interestingly about his time coaching summer ball in the Oneonta area, and then also in the Cape League, and kind of just how things come together in a person's life and right place, right time. So I think you'll really enjoy this episode. I'd like to remind you that this podcast is made possible through the generous sponsorship of the Mohegan Sun Baseball Coaches Convention in its 23rd year. This year, the dates are January 15th to 17th, 2026 at the Mohegan Sun Casino in Connecticut. You could check out their website at baseballcoachesclinic.com, but I'm on the website right now and just looking at, here's some of the presenters this year. Jim Penders, head baseball coach at UConn. Matt Hyde, longtime scout for the New York Yankees. J.P. Pine, head coach at Amherst College. Brandon Brewer, assistant coach, University of Miami. Nick Sirio from Velo U. Jim Martin, new head baseball coach at Stony Brook. Dan 𝐟𝐵𝐿𝐵𝐿, head baseball coach at Murray State, who had a tremendous run last year. Barry Davis, head baseball coach at Rider. Tracy Smith from University of Michigan. Todd Donovan, longtime scout. My friend Tucker Frawley, who's been on the podcast, who does defense, gameplay, etc., planning for the New York Mets. Steve Trimper, longtime contributor to the Mohegan Sun Coaches Convention. He's the head coach at Stetson. Pete Walker, pitching coach at Toronto Blue Jays, as we record this now, up 2-0 on the Yankees. Carl Nonamaker, associate head coach from Auburn. Elliot Glenn, pitching coach, recruiting coordinator at Fordham. So you can see the lineup, and there's many more, by the way. The lineup of speakers they have, the venue, the vendors. It's just a fantastic event. So I hope you check out their website at baseballcoachesclinic.com. And without further delay, here's my coach with Lance, my conversation with Lance Ratchford, head baseball coach at Marist University. All right, so Lance, I'm pumped to have you, and I'm also appreciative that you sprinted across campus after or in the midst of a practice to get here. So that's awesome.
I'm missing BP today, and it's okay. We swung it pretty good on Sunday, so I kind of I trust Ray to run BP all right, but we got everything in before the last basically segment of practice, and we're good to go. So
and that may be something we come back to. We kind of talked a little bit about it before I hit record, maybe just to give some people an idea of what a fall is like. But I'd kind of always like to start at the beginning. I mean, I know you were born and raised in Oneonta, correct?
Yep.
Okay. And obviously everyone I deal with is a baseball guy. So I'm not going to ask you if you played baseball as a kid. I'll ask you though, did you play other sports growing up too?
Yeah, huge hoops guy, from a hoops fan. My dad played college basketball. So everybody kind of, thought I was going to play basketball like my dad, growing up. And big part of our family, was hoops. And, when I was all done in high school and knew I was going to play college ball, I mean, it was cool. So
did you play basketball all through high school too?
Yep, all through high school. Played at a really good high school too. We lost in the state tournament Trying to chase the state championship my last year. And, so it was a big part of my life growing up for sure. So,
Did you ever think you were going to play college basketball, or was it never a
yeah.
possibility?
So, I mean, when I was young, you know, playing a lot at the Boys and Girls Club and I mean, almost every night. And then obviously, like, my dad has no baseball background, which is crazy. He was a college basketball guy and he was learning the game as I was learning the game, along the way. And, I would say like right between like that sixth grade and ninth grade is when baseball really took off for me. And I was really good at hoops and we had a really good program at my school, but baseball, I think I was just next level. So that kind of just took over and we kind of knew where I was going to play college baseball probably around 10th grade.
So actually, perfect transition. Like,
Yep.
what was your recruiting like to college? Like, what do you remember? I mean, because you graduated high school, what year?
In 2007.
2007. So like we're now talking there were cell phones. Like
Yep.
there was, I don't, it's probably the landscape of recruiting has changed a lot, but most of the guys I talked to are older and there was really no recruiting or certainly no.
Yeah.
So what do you remember about getting recruited?
Yeah, so the way that like you got letters then. Like I would get packages in the mail and invited to camps and then you get phone calls too and I remember going through recruiting and my dad and me kind of had a sit down and like I was going to play probably at a mid-major Division 1 where maybe we weren't going to win a lot. Maybe it was going to be kind of rough. I remember getting recruited by University of Buffalo, that's not around anymore.
Not around anymore. Yeah.
Canisius, did reach out to me. Binghamton, like being local, like you get those initial letters and packages, but I knew I was going to play. If I was going to play Division 2, I was going to play really good Division 2 baseball. So getting recruited by Millersville, Franklin and Pierce, getting to go on a visit, with Coach King at Franklin and Pierce. And then, Mansfield was, one of the best Division 2s around, when I was going, through it. And, they had gone to a national championship twice and lost to Tampa twice. But been to the College World Series. Harry Hilson was, a Hall of Fame coach.
Yes.
And, when I went for my visit there, it felt good. I wasn't super far from home and, I ended up signing there and my experience there was really good, and people always say that like, oh, but like you left. But we had just came off a regional in 2010 and we had a really good cluster of middle infielders. And we all deserved to play and we were all kind of split in time and we got back from a regional and I talked it over with my parents and I really wanted to play every single day that last year of eligibility that I had and we ended up making the decision that I was going to transfer and it was the best decision I ever made in my life, going and playing at Keystone and really it all coming together for me for my last year in school and playing for Coach Chev. And I feel like if I never played for Coach Chev, I wouldn't be, in this spot right now and I wouldn't have this job.
So let's talk about this. At that point, was transferring a pain in the neck, or was it not that complicated at that
So
point?
it just wasn't really common. It wasn't really common. And, like back then you like got your release. And I actually remember when we got back to a regional and then me going into the coach's office and talking to Harry about it. And, Coach Hilson, great guy and, great coach, hard nosed, old school coach. And I was in his office for a while. He didn't want me to go. And I didn't want to go either. I had a group of friends there. I met my wife at Mansfield, and that place is still super special. We won a lot of games. We got to play in a regional in 2010, and I actually got some playing time in that regional too. So it was one of those things. We really looked at it, and we knew what was returning. He wanted me to be possible team captain. Coming back.
Right.
That following year. Um, and we were in his office for a little while, and he just I had to make a move. And it was one of those things. I think sometimes kids nowadays transfer for the wrong reasons,
Agreed.
and and that was a really hard decision that I made. And I remember getting on campus at Keystone for that first fall, and watching practice and being like, oh shit, man, like these guys can play here. Like it's gonna be harder for me winning a job here than coming off a regional at the Division 2 level. Where playing at Mansfield and playing in the PSAC is you're playing at a Division 1 school.
Basically,
Um,
yes.
And then also, playing at Keystone, it's the same thing. You're at a Division III place, but everyone could play. I mean, we had four guys drafted off of our College World Series team.
Wow.
In Division III is like unheard of. And then the year before I got there, we had four guys drafted. So Chev was getting guys, taken in the draft right around that 2010, 2011 time at a high rate that was, better than anybody in the Big East, better than anybody in the Big Ten. Everyone could play, and it was just made up of all transfers, that kind of had all the same stories that I did and similar stories that I did. And it's just a super special place. And it's so hard to just almost like describe it to someone. But it's, what Jamie's built there has been unbelievable.
So good time to ask you kind of this, having played at those two different schools, and then you've coached at various different levels.
Yep.
I mean, is it safe to say good baseball is being played all over the place in this country?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And like the way I describe both of them, like, so I played for an old school hard nosed guy that built Mansfield up and, won 900 games and had been to two national championships at that level. Hard nosed guy, like dude that did it really different
Yeah.
than the guy I played for at Keystone that at the time Chev was younger, players coach, very relationship driven. Um, just a different style. More communication, just as far as if you had an issue, you didn't feel like going into his office and knocking on his door, it was going to be anything crazy
Right, right.
or whatever. And just two different styles. And you know what? I think both styles worked. I mean, we won a lot of games when I was at Mansfield, and we were really tough. And it was just two different styles, and I got to kind of play on both ends of it. And it was a really great 4-year college experience that I got to have playing for two really good programs. So
And you mentioned that going to Keystone, you wouldn't be where you are now. Was that was that when the fire to coach came? Like at that point, did it? What I guess I'll ask you is what happened with him and at that school that put you on this path?
yeah, so initial like I knew I wanted to work in baseball. And at the time, Chev had a lot of connections. He was a bird dog scout for the New York Yankees at the time, as well, and he knew a lot of people. And he actually got me in to one of his buddies. I actually interned, with the general manager of the Scranton Yankees at the time. So I get to school in the fall. Go through the fall. He knows I want to work in baseball. Me and him had that conversation. He made a phone call for me. And I landed this internship that actually started, in February time where I was doing some of my internship hours, over, with the GM of the Scranton Yankees. And for me, like that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a general manager. I wanted to work in the front office. I wanted to, work in professional baseball, whether it's going to be scouting or player development or operations. And what was really cool is, working for 𝐼𝐶, who actually, was running the Scranton Yankees at the time. He did everything, from stadium operations to player operations to all of it. And I got a lot of experience. And, that spring we play our spring out. We do really well. Get to play in the College World Series. Chev has obviously independent league ball connections too. So, there's tryouts and things that he has for the seniors that are done. And he had a couple tryouts lined up for me. I had a really good year, obviously, hit high threes and was a College World Series shortstop that last year. So I was going to have an opportunity to play professionally, but I had this really great internship with the Yankees organization lined up, and I kind of made that decision that hey, this is going to be the next phase of my career. The Yankees wanted me there, maybe like 4 days after we were done playing the World Series, so I
Right.
had to like find an apartment, all those things, and then I remember starting and doing that all summer and it being really awesome. Like some of the funnest, times I had in baseball, was working for Scranton that summer. And, they asked me to stick around in September when they were going through the postseason. So, I was, doing stuff for 𝐼𝐶, during that period. And, they had full-time positions that were going to be opening up and I was interviewing for them. And then corporate announces that they're going to get a new stadium in Scranton and that, corporate's going to freeze. Employees that are full time are going to stay. They're not going to hire any new people. They're going to redo the stadium because they have this grant. And that's the stadium that's now in Scranton Wilkes-Barre now.
Yeah.
I don't know how many millions it was, but they had redone everything. The team played on the road then the entire summer, that following summer. And the jobs that I interviewed for were now no more. Like
Right.
they had frozen it. They weren't going to hire anybody. I had to go back to Keystone that fall because I was a December grad. And I remember going home, and it was the first time in my life where I didn't know what my next move was.
Mm.
Like I always in high school, it was like you talking with your buddies, you're like, oh yeah, like I got a scholarship. I'm going to school come next year. I'm going to Mansfield or summer ball. I had something lined up where that next move was there. Like I always knew what my next move was. I remember almost feeling like I was on an island of, oh man, I'm gonna graduate. I'm gonna go home in December and I'm gonna be living at home because I don't have a job yet and whatever. Like, what is my next move? Um, and then I got that call from Ben Grimm at SUNY Oneonta in my own hometown, which was crazy.
So let's talk about that. So that was your first coaching job?
Yeah. So I graduate in December. I remember like filling out job applications on like, the MILB website and sending my resume to like every minor league team, in the organization. And Kurt's trying to help me, my boss from the summer. And I got a call from the Binghamton Mets about like a ticket sales job, like their non-baseball related
Right, right.
jobs. I was like, at the time I'm happy about it, but like I want to work in baseball. I want to do what I did this past summer. Which was, baseball, which was, you're managing, the team, the organization, like all those things. Like that's what I want to do. And I'm just not getting any feedback. And then right before Christmas, me and my buddies we're all hanging out and he had a buddy, one of my friends, he had a buddy that played at SUNY Oneonta, and he was like, "Hey, I just heard that they're going to make a coaching change." And Coach Rich Furchant was going to be leaving the program. And I remember sitting there being like, "Oh man, that's crazy." And then Sunday night happens, and Ben Grimm, who I played summer ball for one of those summers up in Sherrill and NYCBL, calls me on the phone and says, "Hey man, like I'm the interim head coach for the spring. I just got named it. Like I know you're in Oneonta. You graduated, right?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And then he's like, "Well, I don't really know who to hire. It's my first head job. Like, you want to come and be my hitting coach?" And I'm like, "I'm doing nothing else, right? Like, I'm not going to take this ticket sales job with the Binghamton Mets. And yeah, I'll do it for you. I got nothing else going on. I'll help coach with you." And it's me and Ben. I was his head assistant, basically only assistant.
Right, right.
And then we go through the spring. Gives me full responsibility of the infielders, the hitters. He's sending me to camps and stuff, paint events where I'm doing this stuff for the first time. And then I remember when May happened and, conference tournament happened, we ended up making the postseason and doing okay. I remember like talking to my dad and being like, this is what I want to do. Like it's not front office. Like I need a scoreboard. I need to compete. Like I need to put the uniform on. Like this is actually what I want to do with my life. And I'm definitely going to go back and coach with him again. Like this is what I want to do. So
So it's funny. In everyone's story, there's some kind of like something didn't go your way, something happened, and then almost not accidentally, obviously you knew you were a baseball guy, you're going to do
yeah.
something in baseball, but you get this gig in your hometown, and then that just makes you realize this is what
Yeah.
I want to do, and then you were all in from that point
Yeah,
on.
yeah, and it was a really special first position because obviously when you get into it in Division 3 too, like they're paying me I think like $5,000. I think they paid me 3 grand my first spring that I did. I think they paid me five. So I'm living at home, saving some money, still getting what I want to do, and as far as just like building my resume up and building experience. And Grimm kind of let me do recruiting too. So like I'm working paid events. I'm recruiting in the New York area and getting experience. And then I land, Oneonta Outlaws. They have a perfect game league team, right in Oneonta. So I get to coach them in the summer where I get to coach some of these Division 1 players. And then in my head, I'm like, well, I want to coach at that level. And that's kind of where the dream started. And it was just like all going full course, all going head of steam from there.
How long in total did you stay at Oneonta?
So I did 4 seasons. So I want to say it was 2012, 2013, 2014, and 2015. My first year as a volunteer assistant here at Marist was the season of 16.
Okay,
So
so
yeah, so did 4 years. Yep.
before I ask you that, I
Yep.
also know you did wind up eventually, and I'm trying to figure the timeline. You wound up coaching in the Cape at some point too,
Yeah.
correct?
So my last year with Oneonta was my first summer in Brewster.
Okay.
So kind of funny. So we have a really good year in Oneonta for the Outlaws that summer of 2013.
Yeah.
Or yeah, 2013. So um really good summer. We win the league. We have another good summer in 14. I go back to Oneonta for that fall, and I'm starting to interview at some places. And I get an interview with Mike Lavin at Northeastern. He's got an assistant job open. Um, I go at it, man, like it's the job that I want.
Yeah.
And it is too. Working for Mike early. Mike had just been named head coach. He had been an assistant for years. Talking on the phone with him, like you blink your eyes right now, and I could totally see the vision of them being really good now.
Right. Right.
And Glavin was going to build something really cool. The players that I had from him in the summer for the Outlaws were really good players, really disciplined players. We won a championship with his players, and he had that job open, and he called me and asked me, somebody threw him my name, and I got it on campus. Had phone interviews, got it on campus. Got to tour around Northeastern, and like that job was like everything for me. Like I wanted it bad, but you know what? You kind of look back on it, and you tell yourself like, was I ready for that job? At the time, I was super confident
Right.
in what I was doing, how I was coaching third base and running the offense and all those things, and I think I'm ready for it. And I remember getting that phone call from Mike, and he let me know that he was going with another guy. I mean, it's so funny, Coach Casey, who actually just went back, like Coach Casey got the assistant job, and like all guys that are like really good baseball people that, I mean, this is 12, 10 years ago.
Right.
And Coach Casey gets the job and does an incredible job there, and he ends up getting a Division III head job, and I think he's
Right.
going back there to be there, to be an assistant
He is. Yeah.
come this year. So,
Yes.
he gets the job, and I remember talking over with my wife and being like, I got to do something different, like to stand out. Like I need to know what my next move is. And Glavin actually calls me back and says, "Hey, you know, I got an assistant here that coaches out in Harwich. Um, are you interested in maybe going out to the Cape?" And I said, "Yeah." Like, tell him to call me. Like, I'm definitely interested, and would definitely like to do it. And Chev lands a Cape job like a week later, and he called me on the phone, and he's like, "You should go with me to Brewster. Like, go with me to Brewster. Like, do this." And I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, I'm in. Like, let's do it." I'm already kind of talking about maybe going out there. Like, yeah, like I'll go with you. Like what am I gonna make? Like, what's the money like, right?
Right. Right.
And he's like, "You're not gonna make any money salary, but you're gonna like run our camps and
Camps. Right. Right.
run like our advanced skills, lessons and or whatever." And I'm like, it doesn't matter about the money. Like, yeah, I'm going. I'm going. I need to have this on my resume. And I remember like driving out there and like driving to our house that we were all crammed in, in the summer. And I remember like passing a Subway and like a Dunkin' Donuts, and I'm like, oh well, I can afford to eat there every day and there, and like I'm like getting my surroundings all set up. And then I remember just going through it, and best summer of my life, and it obviously totally changed everything for me. Got to coach some really good players, Will Smith and Nick Senzel, and Nick Senzel was the number 2 overall pick and the top college player drafted. Jordan Sheffield, but I mean Will Smith's got 2 World Series rings, and
Yeah.
he's our catcher. 𝐃𝐨𝐧'𝐭, for the Yankees was his backup. He was our backup catcher that summer to Will Smith, and you look back on those moments, and you don't know at the time that Will Smith is going to
Right.
be one of the best catchers of our era, and it's just really cool. It's a really special place to coach at.
It
So
really, my in-laws live in the Cape, and besides it being great baseball, obviously the fans turn out really, great. But it's also, I think, from a summer league standpoint, and you would know coaching in Oneonta, like the Cape teams are all close to each other. All these
yeah,
other
yeah,
leagues are bussing all over the place.
yeah.
So that's I think one of the reasons the Cape is so popular is it's not a schlep all every single game that you're playing.
Yeah, I feel like you get to really focus on baseball too, because I feel like when you're in a league where you got to travel and like that all plays into it.
Yeah.
Where, when you're out in the Cape, you don't have the greatest facilities. It's not like there's indoors and like indoor
Right.
facilities, great cages to do work at, but you have everything you need to get better, but you can really spend the time with the guys because you're not leaving at 12 o'clock,
Totally.
like 7
Right.
o'clock game or whatever. Like there's so many hours on the field where we can really do, early work the right way and get the guys to the field and really do infield stuff this time. And we can do base running stuff this day. And then like they can get a lot of swings. We can do machine work. We can do whatever with them. And you have so much time to I think really focus on baseball
That's
because
a
you
great point.
take the
Very good
travel
point.
out of it.
Right. Yes.
And it makes the summer feel shorter. You wish you actually had more time with them because you're having a lot of fun and you're getting to work with really spectacular players. But yeah, like that's the difference, and I think that's what makes it really special and fun. And you get to really watch these guys, really chase their dreams, but also like make their dreams come true because they all can play. They're all
Yeah.
really talented players. When you have that first practice, there's kids from mid majors, there's kids from Power Fives, and they all play the same. Like they all do the same things, but like the really special ones can really, really turn it on and produce when the lights turn on. And it's one of those things, like those guys that produce are the guys that end up on TV and the guys that
Yeah.
really can handle it and handle the whole summer. And it doesn't matter who's on the mound or what's going on or what hitters in the box, they're going to get them out. Like you really can see like, oh, this is the separation. This is why this guy's going to be a first round pick, and this is why maybe this guy's going to have to really work his butt, work his tail off to make it and to get there all the way. And it's really special.
It really is. I mean, and it's obviously every game's flooded with scouts. I mean, at
Yeah,
every
yeah,
field, there's a
flooded.
whole
I remember
section. Yeah.
like our first game. Yeah. Yeah, you go to like the very first game like that you've ever been to and you're like, "Oh man, there's 25 scouts in the stands watching this guy pitch or watching this one player just hit BP and they're getting video of them and every day there'd be something different. Whether it was these four organizations want to run visions tests on these four guys or they want these two guys to take a written exam that, before BP, or they just want to have a meeting with these three guys. And, like these organizations, they do their homework, especially when the summer's going well and, and, like some of these kids are developing into possible, obviously CEOs of organizations.
Right.
Like Nick going through it with Nick. We knew it was going to be a special year for him. I mean, Boris Corporation came and had meetings with him, and he knew he was going to be a Scott Boris type player. And, and then, teams that have the top 5 picks, they're having major meetings with him, and making those tiny, tiny decisions, based on if he's going to be the number one pick or not.
Right.
And, that's really special to see and witness and very cool. And we've been through it before, with Spencer Jones, we had and Zach Neto, who was the 13th pick. We had Gavin Cross, who's the 7th overall pick. Like we had to coach some really good players that, their dreams really came true, that summer and those 2 months being out there.
So that's around 2016. That's 2016 is when you also started at Marist, correct?
Yeah. So I get home from my first summer in the Cape. I do the fall with Oneonta, and I'm applying for some jobs. 𝐬 and Siena, like Coach Rossi called me and wanted me to interview because they had a spot open, and it's so cool. I mean, it's a Keystone connection. Eric Pelletier, who I played for at Keystone, lands the Marist assistant job, recruiting coordinator job that fall, and he obviously gets drift that I'm trying to look for, a Division I assistant job, and talks to Chev, and Chev's like, call Ratch. He's talking to Albany and Siena, whatever, call him. He's interested in making a move. Calls me up and he's like, hey man, come to Marist. like if you're going to take a volunteer job, do it here with me. You know me, like me and you can run the offense. We can run the infielders. All these like come here. And and then I remember talking to Traz and just being like, yeah, this is a perfect fit,
Did you
for me
know
to
him
make
at
a
all
team.
prior?
I didn't.
You
I
didn't.
didn't. So, came on the interview and Traz is just, so hard nosed but really detailed and as a tough coach and all those things. And I think the combination of me, Eric, and Traz, it was just really special. One of the most special times I ever had coaching was, working with both those guys and came here and it was the absolute perfect fit with all three of us. Traz was the bad cop, I was the good cop and Pelletier was kind of the guy in between. And I'm the guy who always kept it positive, and Eric was just kind of both sides of it, and the three of us were just really cool, really really great staff together, and we win the league in 17. Have a really good team in 18. Probably could have made a regional in 2018, and then after that, soon after that, I get my first opportunity to be a head coach, and but those years were super special for 16, 17, and 18.
So I'm gonna perfect time to ask you about this though. When you got the head job at Cobleskill, were you still a good cop, or did you change cops when you took that gig?
So it's funny. The whole Cobleskill thing is really crazy. Like, we were that 2017 team we had here was really good and we were young. And then 2018 we had just missed out and like I wasn't going to take the job at all. And the AD had called me on the phone. It was like down to like the last 2 days where the job was open and she had knew that I was an Oneana guy and things like that. And I was kind of like, we're gonna have a good team. Like, I don't want to miss out on this. Like, I don't even care about the money anymore. Like, it's not about the money. It's about like what the job's worth and where it can take us and all those things. And then I did phone interview and then I had an on campus and I remember being on campus and being like, they have some facilities here where I think you could build something cool and no one's really like all they can do is like it's a brand new program. All we can do is go up.
Right.
And I ended up taking the job and you're right. It is new to you. And I think early on I was definitely bad cop. I was trash right away because that's
Right.
what I knew
Yep.
and that's what I knew and that's what I saw was very successful from him. And everything I've learned from this business and how to be a head coach was from him and Chev and Chev's good cop, players coach, approachable, all those things. And Traz, I think is we're probably on that other end of just toughness and details and all those things. But he always balances out his staff with guys that are kind of like on the other end and it worked really well. But I would say right away, yeah, I was trying to be something that maybe I wasn't. But then, as you go through it, you're just learning as you go and you learn exactly how you want to run your program and how you want to be. And as soon as the guys start seeing that you're genuine and all those things, that's when you earn their trust. And that's when you can kind of get them to max out on their full potential.
And obviously, you know the game, and you knew. So probably, I'm guessing the easiest part of being a head coach for the first time is probably the on the field baseball stuff, which was
Yeah.
the same. Was
Yeah.
there one or two things you remember being like, man, this is a lot more on my plate, or like, I really like doing this as a head coach, really don't like, or I don't like something? Was there, well, I guess I'll ask you, what was the biggest adjustment to running your own program?
So, at the Division 3 level, you got to do everything. So, here at Marist, when I was an assistant, it was like, all right, focus on the hitters, focus on the infielders, focus on, position players. Trez had me doing, like I handled like meals for us on the road. Um, like camp stuff, whether, running youth camp, running prospect camp, organizing, our recruiting calendar, like things like that. But, when you're a head coach, it's fundraising, it's social media, especially at the Division 3 level,
Right.
social media. You're handling academic stuff. You're doing everything at that level. And I remember at first I was like, oh man, I'm a little overwhelmed. But then as you start to go through it, you're like, oh, like I like it. Like for me, I like being in control of those things.
Right.
And like the social media side, like I can control how the world looks at us,
Right.
like how we're viewed and and what, our experience is here and what that player's experience is going to be if they choose to play here. I got to really, really dissect and recruit my own team. After that first year, we really just revamped the whole entire roster and brought in all of our guys, which was really cool. And that team, ends up later taking us to a couple divisional titles and almost get to their full potential too. And that's what's really cool. And then I remember being done coaching like my first year, and then I was like, before this, I didn't really know if I wanted to be a head coach. I just thought it was the right thing to do by taking this job that was offered to me.
Yep.
And then I knew, like, from there on, I know why people fight for these head jobs because, I mean, it's the ultimate position in our game. I think to be a head coach at our level. And now I understand of being in control of everything and it's definitely what I want to continue to do, and now I feel like I'm in the spot that I ultimately want to be.
So you wind up staying, I think, 4 years at Cobleskill.
Yeah, 4 years with the COVID year being in
Right.
there. 2019 we were, I ended up luring Cost there. Mike Cost was, just finished up in 2018 his senior year. He was a captain of our pitching staff, and I really didn't know how to hire. And he was working youth camp for me that summer at Marist, and I was like, "Yo, man, you want to be a pitching coach?" And he doesn't know what to do with life yet, right? And
Right, right, right.
I gave him $2,000. I think that first year he thought it was like $1 million, so he was like, "Yeah, I'll take it." Um, so yeah, it's one of those things you really don't know what you're getting into, and um, 2019 we were good. We ended up, leading them to the postseason their very first year. They had won 3 games the year before we got there.
I know, amazing turnaround.
Yeah, I think we
Amazing.
win 16 or 17 games that first year, and we go 500 in conference and get them to a conference tournament, which was cool. But then Traz steals Cost back, right? To be his pitching coach here at Marist, which he had to take, right?
Right.
Coming here as alma mater. So I ended up hiring one of my former teammates, Austin Schraub, who I played with at Keystone, played with me in the College World Series. His wife had landed a teaching job in that area, and they were moving anyways. So it just lined up perfectly, where he ended up becoming my assistant. And we recruited our butts off that summer, and we were going to be really good in 20. Really good. I think we went 8-3 to start the year in 20, and then obviously COVID happens.
Right.
So we only play 11 games in 20. We were 8-3. Everything's blasted off. And then in 21, we were really good. Ended up winning the division for the first time. And then in 22, we win the division again and have a chance to go to a regional. We come up a little short. Um, within that time frame, I decided to go back to the Cape, because I was a Division III head coach. I could do that now. I win a Cape League championship in 21. We lose in 22, and then have an opportunity to, either go with Traz to Army, or ultimately, take the job here. And, obviously, this has been a dream place for me, and I took the opportunity to come back here.
So would it be safe to say, like, so you're at Cobleskill, were you ready for your next gig, or is it just turned out that, hey, Trez gets this great job at Army, and now the
Yeah.
place that I used to work is open where I have familiarity? Was it more like the right opportunity came as opposed to you saying I'm looking to make a move?
Yeah. So my ultimate goal as soon as I was at Cobleskill was, I want to be back in Division I ball. I think me going back to the Cape, I mean, my wife had that sit down, and, I told her, like, hey, we're doing this summer stuff, just so I can kind of keep my foot in the door here. I want to, it's got to be the right move, but I do want to be back in Division I. And I remember when the Army job opened, I think initially, like people think like, oh, I reached out to Tim, I reach out to Traz, or how it works, but I actually was just like, you know what, I'm just gonna sit back and watch this, because I know Traz really wants that job. And people are like calling and texting me, like some of my buddies that are in coaching, and they're like, "Oh, is Traz going to the Army? Is this happening?" I'm like, "I don't know, man. You should ask him. I don't know.
Right.
I'm out here in the Cape. We're trying to win a championship. We just won one the summer before, and Traz calls me on the phone, and he was like, "Hey, this was really weird today. Like I was on campus, and he was like." we talked about the offer, but they didn't offer me, but they want me to come back tomorrow. And I think they're going to offer me when I go back tomorrow. And I was like, oh, okay. And he's like, if I get it, like you can go with me or like you can be the next head coach at Marist. And I remember just like crying instantly on the phone with him. I'm in the Cape. My wife's right there and she's like, who are you talking to on the phone? And I was like, Traz just told me he's gonna get offered by Army, and he said I can either go with him or I can be the next head coach at Marist. And I told him I was like, hey, like I'm gonna try to go after this Marist thing, and if it doesn't work out, like yeah, I'll go to Army with you. And he's like, it's gonna work out. He's like, you're gonna dazzle him in the process, and you're gonna be the next head coach at Marist. And I was like, I'll do it. I'm gonna go after it hard. And he's like, well, Tim Murray's gonna call you tomorrow. So my current boss here now, and he called me the next day, and we talked for a while, and yeah, I wanted it. I wanted it more than anything. It was like one of those Northeastern type, you know, feelings that I had when I was going through it with Mike, but I was ready this time, right? Like I feel like the Mike Glavin situation after it, I was frustrated and felt like, oh man, that would have been perfect for me. But you know what? Like the way we go through life, this one was actually more perfect for me. I was a New York guy. Me working for Traz, I think was a better fit than if I was in the Boston area, something I wasn't familiar of. Like you can tell like how like how things can work, and I almost had that same feeling. But I'm ready this time, and obviously interviews went really well. I remember when they called me and offered me the job, I was like in the parking lot at like a Stop and Shop in Cape Cod because you get no phone service anywhere. And they offered it to me. And, I told them I needed a day, but, I took it the next day and the rest is history. Like your dream is come true.
I
So,
mean, I would say this that obviously working for Traz at Army, which is a ridiculous institution, would be cool. But I think based on what you
couldn't go
said, and
wrong.
yeah,
Couldn't go wrong.
and you couldn't go wrong. But now that you had this experience at Cobleskill and you're running your own thing, to keep running your own thing at a Division I school where you've had past experience seems like the right place, because ultimately maybe you're with Trez a couple of years and the whole goal would be to get a job like Matt.
Yeah.
So now
Yeah.
you just got the job,
1000%.
right?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And like this place is special to my family too. Like my daughter was born across the street from here at Vassar Brothers, right across the street hospital. My wife works right across the street now, and she worked right across the street from me when I was an assistant. And when we left here, it was a hard decision. My wife has a group of friends here, like I loved it here. Like for me to tell her that we were going to go back, I mean, it was like the easiest this,
That's great.
transition possible and things like that. But yeah, 1000%. Once you start to run your own program and do it and see it from that side, I'm not saying it's hard to be an assistant again. I feel like I could do it, no doubt, especially working with Traz again would be an absolute dream too. But this place is super special, and for me to get my first, Division I head job here, it was the perfect fit. So
So for people, just a couple more questions, but one is for the people that don't really know Marist, that because the kids that I've worked with that go up to visit all seem to love it. What generally can you say about Marist from a student standpoint and then from an athletic standpoint?
So the way I describe it is it's the whole package. So when we take kids on the visit, we don't just stick to athletics, we don't just stick to academics, like it's everything. And and that's the thing. You walk around here, like our facility isn't the greatest facility. Um, but our player development facilities are some of the best around. Our indoor hitting facility, our brand new weight room that we have, I mean, the avenue to get better here is there, and that's the way we explain to recruits. And you know what? We're going to get something here that is going to be spectacular where we get to play. And I think that's the last piece. I always say that to recruits. I say, hey, because we have blueprints now. Like we have things to show them of what's coming here, and that's the last piece of where you get to play. But from any recruit that's been here, I mean, even Ethan Conrad, first round draft pick, like he grew here, he developed here, and he developed into a first round draft pick here. Obviously he did go to Wake for that, for that year, and did get hurt or whatever, but the player that he turned into, like there was every single avenue as far as facilities and how we do things here to get better and become, a first round draft pick. I can say that now.
Right.
But also, like, it's not just that, it's the combination of the campus. And then also, obviously, the first class education you get here. We have one of the best business programs in the country, obviously, with our network of being close to New York City. And then, obviously, on our alums, that are working in New York City in the business world, like there's just such an avenue here, to do something special. And, I always say that too. Our campus is very unique, right? Like the way I describe Marist is, um, if you're someone that wants to have access to New York City and wants that, that avenue for internships, job placement, all those things, you're a train right away. But
Right.
also, if you're someone that likes to hike, fish, hunt, you know, anything that the Hudson Valley offers. Like if you don't want to have that city feel, you don't have to have it. And that's what's unique about just where we're located in the Hudson Valley region. There's not super crazy traffic here, but
Right.
also you can hop on the train and see the Yankee game tonight. And if you have that avenue and have that itch to be in the city, you're right there. So that's the best way I really describe it as far as our geographical, location too.
Yeah, that Hudson Valley region's pretty awesome. I mean, I'm more of a country, river, mountains kind
Yeah.
of guy, and
Yeah.
it's beautiful up that way. Um, in terms of, recruiting, is there anything that you and the staff try to identify that things that matter to you, whether it's metrics, is it a mental quality, is it speed, is it size? Like, is there anything when you're recruiting that makes someone rise above other kids that you're looking at?
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like we all recruit really good baseball players. But for here, those championship teams and those really good teams that we had in the past, they were just really tough and detailed kids.
Hmm.
So anything like guys that are just consumed with being excellent at everything they do. So have really good grades, obviously, family is super important to them. And then obviously the baseball part, like they have to be baseball junkies at the
Hmm.
end of the day. If they're not doing school and if they're not fit with family, like they're in the cage, they're working on their game, like they have to be consumed with just being excellent at everything. And I think that you're right. It's a personal makeup. We know when we're spending that day with that kid that's on campus with us, we talk about school, we talk about family, we talk about like what their work ethic is and what their off season might look like and what their day to day might look like. And you can tell right away what guys have a plan and how detailed they are with how, like what development means to them.
Right.
Because that's the thing, we're not going to get finished products here, right? They're going to have to come here. We're going to have to, be tough kids. We're going to have to develop. We're going to have to, get them physically there too, whether it's weight room, whether it's, with our strength and conditioning coach, whether it's conditioning, whatever it is, but they're going to have to develop into like that premium player while they're here. And if the mental makeup isn't there and the work ethic's not there and the details aren't there, they're going to come here and they're going to stay the same. They're not going to get any better.
Yeah.
And
I
we're
think
just not in
that's
the business
something.
of taking on guys like that.
I think even as the major league playoffs are out, right, and you see even these stories of these major dominant major leaguers who were they were in high school weren't heavily recruited, or it's like that grinding ability to just love it and not like, oh, I gotta go hit again, like just love everything. It really truly seems to be the separating factor and who gets really good at the
Yeah,
sport,
yeah,
right?
1000%. And we have some guys right now that might not have been money guys and might not have been guys that are on scholarship. I feel like over my time here, guys that aren't on money right away end up being like really hungry players, really tough players, kids that really know how to face adversity, kids that know how to chase like what they want, or what they dreamed of, or all those things, rather than maybe a guy that came in with success, high school success. The rankings were high, all those things. Like the guys that end up being those other guys end up being our best players. I mean, whether it's on the mound, whether it's positionally, like I can name guys that have just had super success here and been champions here, and maybe came in on no money and then earned money when they were here and earned everything that they had. And you look at it at the end of the day, and you're like, oh, that's why that kid was successful,
Right.
right? And
And
that's
it
what,
also, those are the kind of kids that make you want to coach. That's what
yeah,
you're in coaching
yeah,
for, those kind of kids too, right?
hmm
All right, last thing I want to ask you, and I'm so happy that we connected and So happy
Yeah,
you
for
got this
sure.
gig. I knew when you first got it, I think I sent you a text, congrats, and you're like, my dream is to hear. I'm so
Yeah,
happy for
yeah.
you. Um, I have never asked this to anyone, and it's not a secret to you, but a lot won't know. Can you describe the first semester, if you will, in the fall, like between individuals and fall schedule? What is life like for a Marist baseball player in the different phases in the fall?
Yeah, so we try to get the guys like a week or two once they get on campus. All right, so we actually do start with like a week of indies, sometimes a week and a half of indies before we get going. But we also don't want to waste good weather.
Right.
So I would say by that either that last week of August or first week after Labor Day weekend, like we're going to start team stuff. So obviously we use up all of our, and if people don't understand what it is, like we're in our team segment. So we're on 20-hour weeks. All right. And we are kind of talking about it a little bit. When we get into our team segment of the fall, we lift 3 times a week. All right. Right now we're Monday, Tuesday, Thursday. So 3 times a week. We don't do conditioning during those 3 times. It's built into our lift a little bit, but we're playing baseball and then we're lifting weights. And we're gonna go right up until I want to say our last day of 20 hours is October 23rd.
Okay.
We have a little fall break that's mixed in there, where the guys will get to go home for a day or two. But we're all done October 23rd. And then within that team segment in the fall, we got to play against Lafayette for a doubleheader. You get two outside competitions. Lafayette, we played for a doubleheader, and then we just played Herkimer for a doubleheader this past weekend. So the way we try to do it, I always want to try to find one Division I program to play, and then a junior college team to play so that some recruiting can happen. We get to take a look at some of what Herkimer has to offer. We've had some Herkimer guys here
Good.
over the years, so always try to do a junior college, and a Division I program, someone that's going to challenge yourself. Lafayette was really good. They came here and played really good baseball, and we ended up splitting. They won game one, we won game two. What AJ Miller's building there is super cool. So got to do that. As soon as October 23rd happens, we will segment into 8-hour weeks, so individuals. So that'll start that last week of October essentially, and then we'll go right up until Christmas break. I want to say December 13th might be the last day of finals here. Then they'll go home for Christmas break, and when they come back, it's ready to roll.
And how do you run your individuals? Do you do things such as like, hey, this group is going to be infielders, then I'll get out, or is it group of hitters, or is it various combinations of how you do that?
So it's a combination for like our hitting groups. We try to keep guys that are working on almost have like the same issues or
Oh,
trying to make the
interesting.
same adjustments. We try to keep those guys together, but it
Smart.
also has to work with classes too.
Right. Right.
So, we want to try to keep those groups as individualized as possible. And it'll be different. Like what Ray will work on with the hitters with this group might be different from a group that he might have later on in the day. And then infielders, obviously, and then outfielders, they'll have their own indie groups for as far as defense. And then we try to have one team day mixed in there too. So almost, I mean, it'll be a shorter period, but we might have 40 minutes where we get everybody together and we're able to go through like a PFP circuit, or we're
Right.
able to do cuts and relays or something that's more team defense segmented as we're kind of going through it and loading up all of our hours.
And then this is an obvious question, but outside of the hours that the 20 hours, whatever, the 10-hour period, the guys are going way above and beyond on their own. They can lift
Yeah.
extra on their own. They can hit on their own. They can throw on their own. They can do
Yep.
unlimited. And I would imagine your guys are taking advantage of that opportunity.
Yeah, yeah, and I always say with the pitchers, we always have different plans for our arms. Whether a
Totally.
guy's going to shut down for a little bit and then they're going to get going again. I always tell our Ps like this is the window where we can improve our stuff. Okay, like if you're working on another pitch, if you're trying to add velo, if you're a position guy and you're trying to tear down the body and come back to us, with a new body come springtime, like this is the time to really build it. Hitting wise, if there's something you want to revamp or change, like this is the time. You're not being evaluated right now, right?
Right. Right.
We're trying to come back with something new. And that's the best way to look at it. And these guys, they're going over and beyond, and then when they go home for Christmas break, there might be a guy that they're working with at home, or someone that's helping them with their speed, or someone that's trying to help them with their diet. We have a new dietitian, that's full time on our
Nice.
campus
That's
now. So
huge.
combination of our full-time strength and conditioning coach. We now have Aaron, who's been really good with our guys, and some of them are, trying to really make life-changing adjustments, whether they're trying to add weight, whether they're trying to add muscle. Combination of them just working with our strength and conditioning coach, and then also, with our dietitian, which is really cool.
I get jealous of the high school and college age kid who wants to gain weight because I'm always in trying to lose weight mode,
Yeah, yeah.
But all the guys I work with, the high school kids, they all want to, they all want to gain weight. But Lance, thanks so much for your time. Listen, and I'm also happy from what I do now. I had a 2024 kid with you, made an all freshman team, right? A
Yeah,
2025, that's going to be a good player, and 226s. And I think we got and listen, these are good players and
yeah.
they fit your mold. So I hope we can keep that going
Yeah,
too.
hopefully you can go 3 for 3 and we'll keep getting guys from you. You've been pretty good, pretty spot on. What's
Exactly.
funny too is like every time someone reaches out to me, I'm like, hey man, if Wayne's texting you, text him back. Text him back. He's been right on. He's been spot on. And we'll continue to work and get some good players here at Marist. So
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. All right, Lance. Thanks, buddy. It was so awesome to hang out with
thank
you.
you, brother.
Yeah, you
Anytime
got it.
we'll do it again.
Awesome. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Game Plan podcast by College Baseball Advisors. I hope you enjoyed today's conversation with Lance Ratchford. Again, this is your host, Wayne Mazzoni. My background is 30 years as a college baseball coach. Now I am a recruiting advisor where I work with players and families on the recruiting process. For more information about that, please visit collegebaseballadvisor.com. And again, a big thanks to our sponsor, the Mohegan Sun Baseball Coaches Convention. For information on their next event, which is January of 2026, go to baseballcoachesclinic.com and look forward to seeing you on our next episode when we have Frank Holbrook, the new head baseball coach at Brown. Thank you.